Hello and welcome to Data Lounge Home Edition. My name is Alejandro Leguizamo. I'm your host. Obviously, under these crazy circumstances, we're all working from home. This is the only place I was able to actually find that is presentable to all of you. Thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for giving us the chance to join you once again. We know it's been some time, but hey, we've been trying to get it together to get back to you as soon as we could. One of the things that I miss a lot from working from home is having the chance to be with colleagues and learning about, hey, what are you doing, right? And it got us thinking. It got us thinking of, hey, where have been those moments in our journey in technology over the last few years where we said, hey, this is weird. What do I do? How do I get moving? And one of the things that really caught our attention was, well, you know what? And this was a personal reflection, is for me, probably the most difficult part when I was starting in technology was, hey, hold on. I've been working in the on-premises world for so long, but this cloud thing is completely new. I have no clue whatsoever. I hear everybody talking about the cloud, like all of a sudden everybody is an expert and everybody knows what this is all about. But I'm in my day-to-day job and managing my SQL servers and managing my Windows and managing my integration services. I'm in my on-premises world. All of a sudden this cloud thing comes over. And when I talk to the technical people, to other technical people within the organization, people that manages things like networking, or people that manages things like email, they're like fluent on this, and they say yes, and they say Office 365, and they say yes, the change in the cloud. And for me as a data person, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all. So given the current circumstances where probably many of us are still at home, hopefully being able to work from home, we have decided to create a little bit of a line where you're going to be stuck with me. So we're not going to have amazing rock stars in some of our videos. In some others, we will continue to have, obviously, rock stars. But the idea of this small subsegment within Data Lounge is to be able to say, hey, take me through that journey, okay? If I'm at the point where I need to restart my career, right? And I need to get acquainted with the cloud, and I need to get going on with it, but I find it so confusing and everybody seems to know everything about it. How can Data Lounge help on that? Okay, so there'll be some videos where you're going to be with me only. So I'm sorry about you. I feel really sorry. But hopefully some of these videos will help you get acquainted with these. And if you're restarting your career, or if you're just wanting to take a look at what is this cloud thing, we will be able to take that journey together. Okay. So welcome to Data Lounge. And once again, thank you very much. So what we're going to do today is let's start with the absolute basic. Okay. I need to go to the cloud. Where do I go? I'm a data person. Where do I go? How do I use the thing? How can I start? Okay. So what you will see on my screen right now is I have my browser. That's it. Okay. That's all I have. And obviously the cloud is full web. That's leveraging the power of the internet. Okay. So the first step, if we want to go to the cloud, if we want to start working with Azure specifically, we'll go to this place. Okay, it's portal.azure.com. Okay, and this is going to ask me immediately to join, right? And you say, okay, but how do I authenticate? Because what do I use? And obviously, if you are in an organization that is still in the on-premises world, or not necessarily is in Office 365, you might say, okay, but what do I use here? Okay. Advantage, very clear advantage when we're learning about Azure is we don't need to have a specific corporate identity. Okay, you don't need to go ask to your IT person and say, hey, I need an email account from our domain.company that blah, 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 so I can check the cloud. No, you don't need to do that. For our demo scenario, and the idea, again, of this series of videos is that that we walk together through some of the basics. What happens if I cannot have or use corporate resources to check this out, is how do we do it together. So for this purpose, the only thing you will need is an email account. It does not have to be a corporate one, okay? And even Microsoft gives you the chance to create one. So you see here the option that if we don't have an account, we can definitely create one, okay? So what I'm doing right now here is I'm going to type an address that we created specifically for this, and this is the account we're going to be using in this journey, okay? So it's going to be data launch demo at outlook.com. It's a regular, normal outlook.com account. I'm going to go next. Of course, it's asking me for my password, so I'm going to type the password here, which obviously I will not share with you, ladies and gentlemen and everyone else. So let's go sign in. Let's take a look. And this is Azure, okay? This is the very first picture that we see when we are in Azure, okay? Now, if you come from the on-premises world, we need to adjust certain things in this chart, okay? So probably the most important one is, now in the cloud, we talk about a concept, which is kind of sounds a little bit weird, which is the concept of resources, right? The way I found the most effective for me to be able to make similarities with what I knew when I started this journey around 6 years ago was, okay, how does this relate to what I used to work with, okay? So the way for us on this learning process is, I suggest we think of this as a data center. We have a massive data center at our disposal, okay? This portal, this Azure portal that we see here is the entry point to that massive data center, okay? And it's starting to talk about, hey, welcome to Azure. You don't have a subscription. And that's when you say, okay, subscription, what? What's a subscription? I don't get it. A subscription, what? Okay. So the idea of a subscription is that this is an element that allows us to establish a place where we're going to be spending. Okay. So obviously this subscription represents an overall overarching structure where we're going to be able to put different elements within. Okay, we're going to see that in a little bit in a moment, okay? So that's the first area. Hey, you don't have a subscription, check out the following options. It's obviously empty. We take a look on the upper right-hand side of the screen. We see that this is data launch demo at outlook.com. Switch directories. We don't need to know what directories are yet. We're going to talk about that in a couple of minutes. So with this scenario here, and it's saying also manage Azure Active Directory. So this somehow looks like we have an Active Directory, right? And this is one of the most important concepts in the cloud for us to leverage any kind of elements within the cloud. Just as in the on-premises world, Active Directory plays such a significant role in the way we structure and we architect, and of course it provides all that fundamental baseline to put all the things together. On top of that, right? In Windows, in the cloud, it plays an absolutely critical role as well, okay? So let's take a look to see what do we have in Active Directory in the cloud very quickly. So I'm going to come here to view, and let's see, hey, it seems there is something there, okay? So let's take a look at that. And we see that there is an error occurred warning here. It says error occurred. We're going to ignore that for now. That's not a problem. Okay, so it seems we have some sort of Active Directory. We have a tenant ID. For those of us, again, we're familiar with a little bit with Active Directory on premises. The tenant word is already giving us some flavors there. So, okay, let's see what else do I have. So let's take a look in users. And it says, well, unable to complete due to service connection error. So we cannot see the users, but I'm a user. So what is this? This thing we're seeing here, okay, if I come back to our Azure Active Directory, is simply the shell of Active Directory. Think of it as the Active Directory console, and we're just taking a look at the different menu options, but there is still nothing there, okay? So we're going to create a new tenant for us, okay? So let's create a tenant. We're going to say, yes, this is a basic one. This is an Azure Active Directory, okay? So we say, next, don't worry about the subscription thing. We will come back to this later, not to worry about it yet. So we're going to work first with our Active Directory because we're going to use that a lot, okay? So we're going to do next configuration. So it's going to ask me for an organization name. So this is going to be Data Launch Demo org, right? And the initial domain name is going to be exactly the same. So datalaunchdemo.onmicrosoft.com. It's important to highlight here, you will see it on the right side of the screen. It's always put the onmicrosoft.com. So you don't have to have a large registered domain DNS thing for you to create your directory the way we had to do many years back then with DC promo and configure DSN and all and DNS and all that. No, we don't have to do that. Okay, if we're starting with the cloud and we're creating these directories at the end of the day, we already have an on Microsoft.com domain. Okay, and that's going to help us significantly. So I'm going to specify here. Obviously, we're based in the United Kingdom, so I'm going to say yes. This domain is, and you can see what it's already stating where the data is going to be located. This is extremely important from a GDPR and data protection laws and data residency requirements when we're doing this configuration. Obviously, in a production environment, this is something that we need to plan really well. But for our learning purposes, simply it's important to highlight here. We see now where the data is going to be residing. So let's say, hey, review and create, validation passed, right? Let's create. And we see we're going to get acquainted a lot with these tiny messages on the upper right side part of the screen. They're saying, hey, I'm creating the directory right now. It's going to take a couple minutes, okay? So there we have it, directory creation in progress. It will take a few minutes. Perfect. So we can leave, one of the nice things about this is that we can leave this running in the background. Okay, so we can come back here. Please take a look at this. Okay, I'm gonna leave this window now. I'm gonna go to home again. Okay, and we will see that this is still running. Okay, if I take a look, it's there in the directory. So we can see that operation happening behind the cameras. Okay. So, okay, we're creating an active directory now. We used our Outlook.com account to create this initial environment. Why is it important, Azure Active Directory? Because one of the things, and we will see throughout in this series, is, and it just finished right now, it created the new directory, is that one of the most important ways to manage elements within the solution, within the overall Azure world, is something called role-based access control, RBAC, okay? And that consumes Azure Active Directory. So for now, for the purpose of what we're doing right now, we have a directory. So let's take a look and see what do we have in that directory that we just created, right? So we're going to say switch tenant here. Okay, take a look here. It's still taking a little bit. Let's come. There we go. Let's go to the directory this way. Perfect. Okay, so now we have this directory, and you can see here, right, that now I am logged in datalaunchdemo.com, right? And we can see the directory, we can see the domain, and we can see the email address. Where if I come to overview, the previous tab, we were really not really linked, we were not logged in anywhere, okay? So now that we were able to create this active directory, we're gonna be moving everything from within this world, okay? So now we have the tenant, now we're happy. Let's take a look to the users. Let's see what do we have in users, okay? This is a preview window, and there we have, okay? In our tenant, the one we just created in our domain, we have already one account, okay? If you remember Active Directory from back in the day, you remembered something called Federation, where we would be able to authenticate some users from other domains and establishing trust relationships and things like that. In the cloud, this is much more transparent. In this particular case, we have directly an account from another domain, a completely different domain, Outlook.com, already part of our directory. Okay, this is one of the key advantages of the cloud, is specifically of this area. From an authentication point of view, when we want to have two separate organizations working together, is very, very straightforward. Okay, up to the point that we have here something called new guest user. We can add users here from other organizations, other companies. So it's really, really flexible in that sense. Okay, so we have this user. Let's take a look to see how is this demo data launch profile looking like, right? So in this exploration here, what we see is we have the data launch demo.outlook.com. It's loading the sign-in. So remember, we're in the cloud. okay? One of the things that is different versus the on-premises world is that this is much more asynchronous in many of the activities, okay? So if you just created a resource in the cloud, there are certain elements like logging, like monitoring, that not necessarily are reflected right away, okay? So if for whatever reason you're doing something and it's throwing some sort of weird error on an object, an element, we're gonna refine the language a little bit more technical in some of our other videos, and it's still throwing some weird error, just give it a couple hours or give it next day and come back and try again, okay? Because there are a lot of processes happening behind the cameras that we might not necessarily be familiar with, okay? Perfect. So we're able to see here the user. We have the identity, right? So we see the name, the user principal name. Now we begin to see some of those probably more familiar concepts. We have the first name, obviously, because that's what it took, okay? And it says, hey, the source is a Microsoft account, okay? So it's who is the source of authority? Who is the entity already validating that this is a valid account, okay? And this is what I was mentioning before, of the ability to incorporate different elements and different sources of identities into Azure Active Directory. Imagine trying to do this in the on-premises world. Would be extremely difficult, right? While with Azure, we can do it very, very quickly, okay? So we have this content here. We're going to create a new user, right? So we can see here the profile. Obviously, we would be able to see the assigned roles. So it's saying, hey, it's a global administrator. And look at this, can manage all aspects of Azure Active Directory and Microsoft services that use Azure Active Directory identities, okay? Careful, this global administrator role is super powerful. It's probably more powerful than what we used to know as a domain admin in Active Directory back in the on-premises world, okay? It's important that we keep it here. Okay, let's not talk about administrative units yet, but obviously we can see licenses, we can see devices. So Active Directory definitely gives us a lot of significant elements to manage. We can see here Azure role assignments. We will come back to this. You see that it's asking us here for something called a subscription. Okay, it's giving us also authentication methods. So this is the area where we can manage and perform some of the more traditional Active Directory operation management here. So we can have a different alternate email. We can also reset the password. We can require multi-factor authentication. I don't have multi-factor authentication defined here. Okay, so I take a look here. So obviously we had the assigned roles. We will come back to that assign roles part. We talk about the global administrator. Let's remember this global administrator can manage all aspects of Azure Active Directory and Microsoft services, so it's more powerful than the one we used to know as the global administrator. Okay, then the domain admin, apologies, than the domain admin we used to have. So it's really, really important when we're going to see it later on in some of the other videos. Of course, we have the groups to which this user might belong to. Obviously, it doesn't belong to anyone right now. We can see the Azure role assignments, and you see that this requires a subscription, that same subscription. We're going to come back and take a look at that a little bit later in some of our other videos, okay? So finally, okay, so I'm quite happy, right? We have a user, we have an Azure role assignment. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come to my overview. Okay, here, data launch. I'm going to come to the data launch demo. I'm going to come to home. And I'm going to say, hey, I am in this tenant already, right? That we know is for authentication purposes. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to start with an Azure free trial. Okay, this is the mechanism for us to have some place to work with the cloud. So I'm going to click on start, and we're going to create now a subscription. We're going to see how that subscription works like. We're going to give it a moment while it loads. This is another aspect that you're going to see in the cloud a little bit. Okay, there might be times when we have some significant delay in some operations in the web interfaces, and that's normal. Okay, we're talking on over a a remote, obviously, web element. So I'm not going to fill this right here, okay? This is the place where we're gonna do it. I'm going to create it, and we'll be back when this is already created, because of course we need to put certain sensitive information here that we don't want to see. Probably what I would like to highlight, I'm gonna put some fake data here, so it's gonna be demo, just like this. It's asking for this. I'm just gonna leave it like that, optional. When I click next, yeah, it's asking for a number, so I'm gonna put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I click next. There we go. It's asking for identity verification by phone. Okay. So this is the part where we're gonna change it, and then we're gonna show you what happened at the end. Okay. So we'll be back. So I just created the sample, the trial that we were talking about before. Okay. You see on my screen, this is where we land right now. This is what we get on. This is called the Quickstart Center. Okay. So let's go back to home. Let's take a look at home, and this is what we have right now. Okay, you see that the upper part disappeared, those initial, hey, Active Directory, get a subscription because you don't have one. So it says we have a subscription now, which is what we just created. So let's take a look in that subscription, and we see that this is the subscription ID. This is my role as Data Launch Demo, and we have the role account admin. So right now we have a subscription. Okay, we gave just our very first steps towards Azure. In our next video, we're going to take a look to, okay, now that I have the Active Directory, I'm not going to continue authenticating with Outlook.com. We're going to create some identities here, and we're going to start working with the cloud and see what we get, okay? Important thing to note about this this very particular subscription that we just created. It's a free trial, so Microsoft is giving us 150 British pounds. If you're in other geographies, I think that one's around $200 or something like that. But that's definitely a significant amount of money for us to play with the things we're going to be working with. During the creation of this, it asks for credit card information. Don't worry, we do not get charged unless we do upgrade to one of the paid subscriptions, so you don't have to worry about that, really. So that's it. That's it for today. These are our very first steps into the cloud. I would suggest you, if we're absolutely new to Azure, take a look at the video again so we see all the process. Try it yourself. There is no problem trying or breaking things. This is one of the good things. Definitely Microsoft has helped a lot the community by trying to making this as try and play and break, and that's perfectly fine. So thank you for joining us in this home edition of Data Launch. We hope you like it, and see you next time. Please, once again, if you like it, don't forget to subscribe, and thank you for sticking with us. We're trying to stick with you. Thanks a lot.